Ready to go. Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to our council meeting today, Wednesday 29th of June. I'm taking the chair today. The Mayor is here. He's vacated the chair as his voice probably won't hold up for the duration of the meeting. First of all, I would like to call for apologies. Everyone seems to be here. So we'll move on to extraordinary business. Is there any items? No. Declarations of interest in today's agenda. Councillor Brahm. You might just need to turn it off again, thank you. Does everyone just want to test their microphones, make sure that they are warmed up and ready to go? Thank you. So confirmations of the minutes from our council meeting on the 15th of June. And we'll just go through and see if there's any corrections. Page 3. Mr. Mayor. Oh, you're warming up. Sorry. Oh dear. I'll just ignore your lights for a moment then. Any corrections on page 3? Page 4? Page 5? If not, take a mover for that the minutes of the 15th of the June council meeting have been taken as read and confirmed. Councillor Rawlinson moves that. Councillor Cameron second. Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against no. Thank you. Next we have the minutes from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, which were held on the 22nd of June. Just page 6, just make sure there's no corrections there. Would someone like to move? Oh, Councillor Cameron, is there a correction?
I'm just going to move.
You're going to move?
Yep, thank you.
That we receive those minutes?
Yes, sir.
And a seconder, Councillor Falloon. Wonderful. All those in favour say aye. Against no, carried. Thank you. Next we have the minutes from the Methane Community Board. Would someone like to move that we've received these? Councillor Lethan. Councillor Lovett seconded. All those in favour aye. Thank you, carried. We will now move to our first report, and we welcome Tony and Janice. So first of all, we've got the adoption of the 2022-23 annual plan, and you'll find that on page 9. We'll take questions if there's any first, or Tony, Janice, if you've got anything else to add. Nothing else to add. Any questions? Councillor Wilson.
Page 36. Hang on. It's in stock water.
Oh. Is it in the actual annual plan or in the report?
The numbers are wrong. Well, it's number 36 of the annual plan.
Of the annual plan?
Yes.
Is that setting the rates? Will that be covered under setting the rates, or is that?
Well, it's a report that there's a couple of numbers there don't add up. Whether we change them now or whether they're funding impact statement.
So page 36 of the annual plan.
Yeah, 933 now down to 892. It should be 43. Therefore, the 118 should be 119. And the 14 should be 43 less 56 should be 13, not 14. I mean, it's minor, but whether it's got to be exactly right.
Perhaps I can comment. My expectation is that those are rounding errors, that the number behind the bald number won't be exactly the number you see, and therefore the sum will be right, even though it sometimes doesn't look like it's exactly right. If it's only one out, there'll be rounding errors.
Thank you, Hamish. Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to go to page 2. I did email Tony, just wondering.
Can you tell us which page 2? Is it page 2 of
it's page 2 on
the annual plan
of the annual plan document?
Okay.
That's what we're looking at. Just the welcome statement, you know, just wondering whether we should have put our diverse multicultural community, made some wording to that, because we are proud of our community here. It was just a thought.
If council wishes us to make those changes to the opening statement, we still could, but we'll need to do it pretty quickly.
I'll go to the Chief Executive.
Through Madam Chair, it would help if we knew exactly what the councillor was proposing, so other councillors could understand what's happening to the draft plan. I don't have the visibility of what those comments actually mean in terms of a detailed change.
And we have
And
seen...
so I imagine other councillors don't know what they're agreeing or not to. So
Yes.
if there's a proposal to change something, perhaps the council could say exactly what word
Give us
is
the
changing,
wording.
what's actually changing
Okay.
in her suggestion.
You have, your light's gone off now, Councillor Lovett, but you said you emailed Tony about that. Tony, do you have any wording that's come through?
Not specifically, it was just that general statement around diversity of community, but I didn't like to make the change post the workshop.
We have seen this, I mean, this has been in the draft for a long time, so it seems unfair on the staff that we would change the wording the day it's adopted. That's my opinion, but we'll go, and if anyone thinks similar, then and Councillor Lovett, please put your light back on if you want to make another comment. I'll go to Councillor Mackay.
Madam Chair, my question starts at page 14 of the annual plan, activities work programme, carries on to page 15, local infrastructure, district management drinking water on page 16, and then I get to the nub of the question on page 17. We have a project on our books to measure the interest with an outside contractor in the northeast corner of Ashburton this financial year. That's going to be carried over. When you do an annual plan document, is it necessary to say that you're actually going to carry it over? But I'm not asking for any change. I'm just wondering if we should let the residents know with a up-to-date press release what's happening, or a letter or whatever.
Thank you. I'll go to Tony first.
I'm not looking for a change.
Okay.
Thank you, through the chair. So our process is by late August we are preparing the carryover report, and that's the request that comes to council with all the projects that haven't been completed by the 30th of June that we're seeking your permission to carry through. So we've never been able to capture those within an annual plan given the due date of which they are adopted by, but certainly your request to make sure that it's very publicly known what's happening with specific projects will be subject to communications at that time of the carryover report.
Supplementary.
So supplementary, Madam Chair, the carryover could or could not take place depending on the August deliberation of this council. Am I correct?
Go to Hamish.
Yes, give or take August, so it may spill into early September, but it is subject to a council decision.
Will the contract to the outside provider have been let by then?
I'm seeing not.
I'm starting to get scared that we're going to lose a project from in the year that ends tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Wilson.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Whereabouts in our document did we actually say the exact amount that the UAGC is? We, quite often is it? No, the total amount that we're collecting from the UAG, what percentage of our rates? It's quite often bundled with the two. Do we actually put in our document what it actually is?
Just give me one moment and I'll look that up for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Coming to the annual plan, just looking at page 35, stock water races, can we just update the stock water races that are no longer required? The last figures we've got in there are from 2019-20, where we closed 4.8. Can we not put the 2021 figures in there? Just a minor thing to be done. And the other one is, again, very similar, very minor matter, is on page 55, where we do not have a, the totals don't add. If you look at significant capital works program, the first column there, LTP 2022-2023, correctly adds to 39,304, but the annual plan does not add up and basically should add to 30,039. Again, it's just a little before it goes. I mean, there's no problem in adopting it because it is the CEO and the Mayor who do the final draft, well, what I call presentable adjustments, and these just form part of that.
Thank you. So that just needs a correction in the total. 54. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you for that, councillor. We'll make sure that's square in the final presentation version. So further to councillor Wilson's question around the UAGC. So the UAGC is showing on page 125 of the Stella version, but it's not breaking down into the percentage, which I think that's your specific question, isn't it, councillor Wilson?
That's 125 on Stella. Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'm just catching up with Councillor Falloon. He said that we should have the figures up to the end of 2022 in stock water too? 21. Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions of staff? If not, Mayor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move the adoption of the Ashburton District Council annual plan for 22-23, and in doing so just mention that it's a 9.4% rate rise. Inflation's definitely not our friend in this year's budget. COVID is certainly not helping at all, especially around staffing and staff availability, isolating at home, etc., etc. Not just council work but other work all happening around the district, even around the country. Supply chain issues not helping again, with items not being able to purchase, used and put into the ground or into wherever they need to go. So it is going to be an interesting year ahead. This is our best estimate. I think it's a pretty accurate estimate, and we'll be doing everything we can to stick to it and deliver the work program as well. So yeah, had pleasure in moving the annual plan.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Brahm. Open for debate, comment, support. Councillor Falloon.
No one likes a 9.4% average rate increase, but to me it's a very realistic rate increase, particularly when we did have a 7.2 or whatever it was in our LTP to cover extra service delivery, and what we've allowed is another 2% odd for inflation. We know that inflation is probably going to be close to between 5 and 7%, so I think we've done a very realistic budget in what we've done. It'll be interesting to see where other territorial authorities are in 15 months' time when they report on their actual results to the end of June 2023, and where we will be, because I don't think we will have to dip into reserves or anything like that in order to get through, because we've done a realistic budget. And therefore, even though I don't like 9.4%, I do support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Totally agree. Nobody likes 9.4%, especially when you look at the urban-rural split. But we have sat around this council table for a long time looking at our programs, and nobody really liked to reduce our service as well. When I look now, and it was a wise decision to reject the Burl inflation, when I look now on the net, it's 6.9% is current inflation rate for New Zealand at the moment. So I think our rate was more reasonable than sticking with the 2.8, I think, that we'd forecast last year. So I'll be supporting this budget.
Thank you. And I'd agree with those comments. I think 9.4 seems very high, but we have put the work in. We have looked at everything. We went out for consultation and we heard a lot of submissions, and we've changed a few things. But in the end, I think we haven't left anything unturned, and thank the staff and everyone for all their work getting this to here. So the Mayor has moved, Councillor Brum has seconded. I'll put the motion. All those in favour to adopt the 22-23 annual plan, please say aye. Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is setting of the rates. Thank you, Janice, and welcome, Erin. So page 12 and Stella. The recommendation goes for 5, 6 pages, 7, more than that, 8 pages. So we'll start with questions first. Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Can I just take us back to page 10 where there was option 1, option 2 or option 3 of what we just adopted?
It's already gone through.
I'm happy with it, but there was option 2 there, giving the CE and the some authority to make those minor editorial changes. Do we need to discuss that too?
I will just, one moment.
Through Madam Chair, perhaps the mover of the motion might like to clarify whether in fact it was option 2 that he intended to move.
Thank you. So we've got option 2, which is adopt the annual plan and give the Chief Executive the authority to make minor editorial changes and corrections of minor errors. Councillor Rawlinson and Councillor Mackay, I'll just get you to turn your light off and I'll go back to the mover of the motion.
Yeah, I'm happy for those minor changes to be amended in the annual plan. They're all but minor and make no difference, so as mover I'm happy.
And I'll check, and the second is happy with that?
Correct, yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Rawlinson, for bringing that up. So we'll go to setting of the rates, and Councillor Mackay, you had a question.
Madam Chair, my question is to you.
Yes.
And it is when you are ready, if you are willing, I would be willing to formally move that the recommendation does not have to be read out by the mover and seconder.
That's fine, thank you. I don't think that is what we were intending on doing. There's a lot of wording there. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Erin or Tony on the setting of the rates? Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm still not satisfied. We should be saying what percentage. It's impossible to try and work out exactly what percentage of the rate at UAGC is. Nowhere do we say, we quote figures, but you try and work it out. You can't.
Tony.
Thank you, through the chair. Councillor Wilson, would you be happy if I inserted a sentence into the Mayor and CEO's forward that talked about how much of our rate was coming from the UAGC.
Yes, I think it should have been in there all the same, so people could read it and understand exactly where we are.
Thank you. That sounds like a good solution. Councillor Falloon.
Yeah, just coming on from Councillor Wilson's comment, basically if you look at the UAGC is actually going up by 8.9% on average. Well, 8.9% is against an average rate increase of 9.4. So that means that as a percentage, UAGC has actually dropped as part of the total rates bill for a lot of people. The other comment I'd make comes back to the roading rate. The roading rate is a targeted rate. And the question I would have is, last year the roading rate was set at 0.00455 per $1 of capital value. This year that is actually reduced to 0.00433. Now to me it seems odd that a rate, you might say, actually gets decreased. And part of the reason for this is because valuations have gone up, therefore that rate as a percentage of the capital value has reduced. But the way I look at it is basically the roading rate is a user pays type one, and therefore to me the fixed rate as far as the roading rate should not vary. If anything it should go up but not go down. And if capital values do go up, then that is a one-off increase as far as the roading budget is concerned, and that extra income can go straight into roading. Basically, most of the roading rate is paid by the rural community, and they are also the ones who get most of the benefit from that roading rate. So it's not something that we can decide upon today, but I just think it should be carried forward to when we're doing the next annual plan, whether or not some of these target rates are subject to volatility up and down depending on what the capital values of the district are doing.
Hamish first and then Aaron.
Thank you,
Yes.
Madam Chair. I understand the comments. The real issue is that's not how we budget. How we budget is we assess the roading need and then spread it across the capital value of the district. So if you were to take a very different approach, which was that the rate in the dollar was magically correct, and then you would go up and down with the way the revaluations might work every 3 years, you would be forever having a different amount of money for roading that you weren't planning for. And remembering valuations can go down, and you might well find at some point that you've got less money as opposed to more. Equally, it would completely alter your rate increase, and you wouldn't be able to even calculate that until you applied the fraction to the relevant capital value, because you are going to keep that constant. So there are a lot of reasons why we don't do it in the manner of that the councillor has discussed. Equally, it goes to the heart of, as we often get told, I'm sure councillors hear this too, that when there are subdivisions and new areas of development in the district, that those new values are contributing rates to the council. And as we say, all that really happens with a change like that in terms of the valuation is that the share that everyone pays alters by the portion of the value, as opposed to the rate stays the same and it goes up with increased valuation. So I think it's unlikely that we would ever recommend being able to do what's being suggested, because it flies in the face of the way in which we budget and go about trying to assess our work program primarily.
Thank you. Any further questions? We have a recommendation which runs from page 12 to page 19. Councillor Falloon,
Moved.
you would like to move. Councillor Brahm, second.
And I will second it, thank you.
We'll go into debate. Nothing. Would you like a right of reply, or would you like to speak to the motion?
No.
Fine, good. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried, thank you. Thanks, Tony. Thank you, Erin. Our next item is... Pardon? Yeah, so item number 9, protected disclosures policy, and we have Tanya here. Thank you, Tanya. This starts on page 22. Tanya, have you got any comments to make? We've all read the report.
Nothing further to add.
Thank you. Any questions from the councillors? No questions? Councillor Wilson.
I'll move the motion that we adopt the protected disclosures policy for elected members and chief executive as attached in Appendix 1.
Seconder, Councillor Lovett. Oh, I'll get you to turn your light off, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Lovett. Any debate on this? Councillor Falloon.
Yeah, page 27, under
So question or debate?
it's comment,
Okay,
so it's debate.
yeah.
Under 27, we've got definitions, and basically, third one, bullet point down, was any criminal offence. They're taking the criminal out, and I don't think that's such a good idea, because any offence can mean, I mean, if you get a road ticket, technically that's an offence. Or is it an offence against what? To me, it may be better, it would be any unlawful offence might be better in order to particularise it, rather than any offence, which could be against a territorial authority, it could be against a criminal, whatever type of thing. To me, just leaving any offence is too broad.
Thank you. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next line down from after Councillor Falloon was, I think there might be a misprint. The oppressive, unlawfully discriminatory, grossly negligent to see. So I think there might just be a little misprint there.
I think it's negligent. They've crossed the CE off by the looks of things. Any other debate? Councillor Wilson?
Could we get a comment from our legal advisor about John Falloon's comment on offence?
We'll go to you, Tanya.
Through you, Madam Chair. So that's a wording from the legislation as offence. It was council's previous policy to have criminal offence, but there's no no distinction. Any offence is an unlawful offence anyway. There's no such thing as a lawful offence.
Okay. So the word criminal's out and it just says any offence, and that's
the wording in the legislation. So that's the wording we've brought through to the policy.
Right, thank you. If there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. Against, no. Thank you. Thanks, Tanya. Next is item 10, elected members' remuneration. And this is on page 33. Who speaks? To Philippa, this is your report.
Yes, it's just for information, and it's confirming that the proposed amounts that the Remuneration Authority advised in February have been confirmed.
Thank you. Any questions on this? Councillor Mackay. No. No questions, then, Councillor Mackay, Councillor Wilson's just got a question, so I'll get you to turn your light off if you don't have a question. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, last year was 41,214. Can we work out what the new salaries is, so incoming candidates have got an idea exactly what they're going to receive? Do we do that at this stage?
No, you don't. The new council will determine its structure. It will have the amount, the pool that's shown. It's an increase of about $61,500 and based on 20 more recent size indices. So the new council will determine its structure, and it will be in the same way required to fully expend the pool, but it will decide whether it pays positions of extra responsibility more and increase the base salary.
Thank you. Did you want to move, Councillor Mackay?
I will move, Madam, the recommendation that Council receives the Remuneration Authority brackets elected member remuneration 2022-2023 report.
Thank you. And Councillor Rawlinson, second.
Happy to second it.
Thank you. Any debate? Councillor Mackay.
Madam Chair, I read the recommendation out because it says that all council is doing is receiving a report from a higher authority called the Remuneration Authority. I also want to take this opportunity to say that, in my considered opinion, this council has worked very well. And I put that down. One of the reasons I put down to is the people sitting around the room. The other reason I put down is that this council did away with the hierarchy of committees. And I'm hopeful that the new council will also do the same. I have been involved in a number of councils that had committees of council, and they tended to become what some councillors thought themselves better than other councillors in a hierarchical role, whereas we have all been on equal pay, equal footing, and I think that's what has made this council work very, very well. So I just wanted to say my piece now while it's subject on the agenda.
Thank you. Any further debate? No, we'll put, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, no, carried. Thank you. Next is the Mayor's report on page 38. And the Mayor's here, so he can speak to that, so I'll go to him.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I have a recommendation there that the Mayor and the Chief Executive be authorised to approve Council's submission on the Water Services Entity Bill. And in saying that, we will be developing up the submission, but some of the points that will be in it will be in the intro above it. And we'll reinforce our opposition to the reforms as they are currently proposed. We'll make reference to the need for a strong local voice in our submission. And we're also faced with a short time frame to make submissions, and our community won't have had a lot of time to share information, but through this avenue here, if the community wishes to submit to the Water Services Entities Bill, they are more than welcome to do so as well. So that'll be on the NZ Government's website, I'm sure, or they could contact Council if they wish a link to get to that bill to put their submission in. So yes, we'll definitely be putting submission in, and I think it's due on the 22nd of July, which is not helping with us having our 3 weeks off. So we'll have it done on time. So happy to move.
Thank you. So that's a recommendation that the Mayor and Chief Executive be authorised to approve Council's submission on the Water Services Entity Bill. So the Mayor has moved that. Councillor Cameron, are you seconding that? Yep. All those in favour, aye. Okay, so, you want, so I'll get the Mayor to turn his light off, and Councillor Cameron.
Will you submit it, will the public have time to read the submission before it gets submitted?
You'll just have to turn your light off when you, after you speak.
Possibly not, but once it's submitted, I'm certain it'll come up on the government's website under the bill, so it'll be there. I'm sure that's correct, Hamish.
Yes, and to the wider point, we'll be able to put the submission on our own website, and I would recommend that we put out some kind of press release saying council's made its submission, you can read it here, and if individuals want to contribute in the same way, please do. So we'll do everything we can. In the end, that deadline is really tight, and how much warning or notice we can give anybody prior to that is still a little uncertain, but we will make it well known when we have finalised it and when it is submitted.
Supplementary, yes.
Supplementary. There's a very strong feeling on this bill in the community, as we all know, and we all have our own strong views on it. Are we going to, your submission that's made by the Chief Executive and the Mayor, will that have on behalf of Ashburton District Council, or will it have the names of the councillors underneath it?
Our normal practice will be to submit it on behalf of the Ashburton District Council. That's the organisation we're representing.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So that does not preclude the individual councillors making their own submission?
No, in my view, it doesn't preclude that. You just need to make it clear that it is a personal submission.
One more question, if I may. If we make our own submission, how does that affect, would we then be conflicted if we went into debate later on, if there's an opportunity to debate this legislation around the council table?
No.
No, we wouldn't be. So we wouldn't have to withdraw from debate comment?
No.
No, thank you.
Mayor Brown.
Yeah, just other people, other organisations who are submitting, Local Government New Zealand is going to submit as well, and also Communities for Local Democracy will also be submitting as well.
Thank you. Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. More than happy to support the recommendation. The question I have, though, will the final draft be circulated amongst councillors asking for comment prior to it being submitted?
I'll go to Hamish.
Through Madam Chair, we will endeavour to do that if time permits. The issue here is time. There isn't another council meeting between now and the 22nd of July. We can't bring it back to a forum like this to confirm it in detail. Equally, the time frame to prepare that submission is also very tight. If we are able to complete it in sufficient time to get comments, we will definitely do that. If, however, the completion is pressed right up against the deadline, we may not be able to.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Madam Chair, I have full, I'm looking for a word, I've lost it, confidence that the submission that the Mayor and Chief Executive authorise will be of Council's view. Although, I'm going to take this opportunity to say that I have been very, very surprised with the number of people that think we have a different view to that of this damn rubbishy bill that puts local assets up for grabs, or seeks to, and I think it would be good if we made it public in some form other than just the normal websites when we do it. I have been very surprised, especially with some of the emails we have received of people who I thought would know our position of anti-ness and how our mayor has fought at regional and at national level on the Three Waters. And it really surprises me. That's why I think maybe it should be made public at the time, other than the website. But those emails we received, some of those people really should have read the Guardian newspaper or the local Courier or something to have actually seen what we've been saying and what we've been advocating for and who we've been supporting all through this, because we've stayed true to the line of anti-bill.
I agree, and I think those emails were almost a copy that was sent out to every different council. So I think no matter if you supported it or not, or didn't support it, you were still going to get those emails. But I'll go to Hamish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to give councillors and indeed the community some comfort, the Mayor's report and this agenda on page 39 does outline the general direction that that submission will take. So I don't think anyone should suffer under any illusions as to council's opposition to the reform in its current form. And the sorts of things that are likely to be in this submission, if it go further, will be in our submission, are outlined in the Mayor's report on page 39. So there should be a degree of comfort both from councillors and members of the community as to where this council stands on the reform.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Can I talk about other items in the Mayor's report?
I'll just put that recommendation.
Okay.
I don't think I did. I had a mover and a seconder. I don't think I put it. So all those in favour that the recommendation for the Water Services Entity Bill, raise your hand. All right. Against, carried. Thank you. And so now we'll go back to the Mayor's report in general. So,
thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the Mayor's report, Local Government NZ, the remits that were going to be considered in Palmerston North at the meeting. Do we get to know which way the Mayor or the proxy?
That's what we were going, discuss with the Mayor before. So generally what we've done in the past is get a bit of a feel of what the councillors think on each of those remits. So we'll just do I think maybe a show of hands as to whether you would like to support those remits or not.
Can I ask a clarifying question before we do that? With regards to transport, I mean, we currently have no review of government transport funding recommendation, independent review in the way in which government through Whakatahi funds transport investment. So that's just supporting a review, like a report. It's not making a suggestion as to how we would fund.
We'll go to Hamish.
No, that's right. So the wording is very specific.
Okay.
Only what is being said on in the remit is the remit. And what we find, even when those remits are perhaps even unanimously passed at the local government conference, many of them are asking government to do something. And unless the government actually listens to that and does it, then they don't necessarily result in any action. So this is simply expressing some guidance to the Mayor as to how he might vote at a conference.
Sure.
You don't get to change this wording. These are remits that have been put up by another council, had a seconder, have passed the quality tests, if you like, through the Local Government New Zealand Board, and are being put up for how do we vote on this. There's absolutely no guarantee that voting on this will result in the thing that it's asking.
Okay, thank you.
And we're quite lucky, there's only 5 remits. Sometimes there's about 20 plus. So, Councillor Lovett, do you have a question on the Mayor's report or on the remits?
I just had, I just get worried that, everywhere through documents that are coming out now, it's always mentioning Aotearoa. This country is New Zealand. I don't mind the two names together, but I don't, it's not formally identified as Aotearoa, and I really think they need to start.
That's not something that we can change because the remits have been...
At conference level, you can sort of say, the country's known by New Zealand Aotearoa, whether they can enforce that in when you bring, talking about these remits.
But there is the Aotearoa Collective is a name of an organisation, so that's their name.
But we just seem to be leaning down that road, and it's not official.
So other councils have put these remits in. All we have to do today is give an indication of whether we support each of those, or we can leave it up for the Mayor to make his decision on the day at the AGM. So. Mayor Brown, I'll just get your advice. Do you want me to go through each remit and
if you would just go
and just a show of hands,
get a general direction on which way they'd like me to vote?
Okay, so the first one is central government funding for public transport. Show of hands who thinks that we should support this remit. Anyone else? No? Okay, so that looks like a no. Review of government transport funding, just an indication if we would support this one. Hands up. It looks like a yes. Illegal street racing. indication of whether we should support this remit? Hands up. That looks like a yes as well. Bylaw infringements. Supporting this one. Hands up if you, oh sorry Jane, have you, sorry Jane.
That's all right, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this would make every regulatory manager in the country happy, because a lot of people don't realise, but at the moment the only breaches we can actually issue infringements for are litter and dogs. So it's pretty bizarre. And the only option you've got is going for a prosecution, which is really would very, very rarely be appropriate to try and go for a prosecution for a breach of bylaw. It's like a sledgehammer to crack a nut. And back in about 2013, the Local Government Commission did a big review of local government regulation and actually recommended this, and for some reason it's never gained traction. So with my professional hat on as a regulatory manager, I think this is a very, very good suggestion.
Thank you. So we'll try that again. Everyone in support of that? Look at that. Great. That looks like a yes, Mr. Mayor. And the last one is density and proximity of vaping retailers. Do we support this? Show of hands. Councillor Wilson.
I've got a question. Nature of issue. In New Zealand, to date, New Zealand has 713 specialist vaping straws, semicolon. The vaping brand of American and British is available in 2000 through Aotearoa. Are they two different countries? It's got 713 in New Zealand and 2000 in Aotearoa.
No, I think the numbers relate to the specialist stores as opposed to the country they're in.
But how can you have 713 specialist stores? What's the difference between a retail store and a specialist store?
Well, the specialist store only does vaping products. Other outlets might have bread, pies and vaping products.
So supermarkets can sell vaping products, but then there's specialised vaping stores as well, so that's possible. Usually at the AGM, the council that has submitted or proposed the remit will speak to the remit, and hopefully we can ask questions, or the Mayor can ask questions on that.
I still think it should be the same name, either it's one or the other. You can't, we've got a double. Why aren't they using Aotearoa New Zealand if they want to put two names? Why call one lot New Zealand and the other one's Aotearoa? It's most confusing.
So that could be a question to the Kaipara District Council when that remit goes to the AGM. Councillor Letham.
Thank you. I take on board what Councillor Wilson says, but what it says is to date New Zealand has 713 specialist vape stores, full stop. A British American vape brand is available from 2,000 retail outlets throughout Aotearoa. Two completely different things, and I would say that's probably accurate.
And again, all we're discussing is whether we're supporting this remit or not. It's not our remit to go through and change the wording, etc. Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Personally, I'm against this particular remit. Basically what we're doing, we're asking TAs or whomever to step in to sort out what the free market is going to do anyhow. Basically, if you've got too many vaping stores in one particular area, there's only going to be one winner at the end of the day. So why should TAs get involved in the free market and what happens within that?
I think it's the nature of who's buying those vapes and who's using them, and there's been a huge increase at high schools recently. Councillor Cameron.
That was the point. Thank you, Madam Chair. That was the point I was going to make. When you read the report, I think it's gone from 1.6 to it was a 9-point-something% of kids vaping, and vaping is not safe per se, you know. And so I don't think this is a a free market or a sales issue. It's more of a health issue with regards to our underlying responsibility to look after the well-being or to support the well-being of our community.
Legally, then, children under 16 are not supposed to buy, under 18 are not supposed to buy vaping products, but according to the school newsletter I got the other day, there's been a huge increase of people using vaping products at school. So let's get a feel. Were we in support of supporting this bill? Yes, so that's yes. So Mayor Brown, you've got all those indications?
All for and 1 against. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. So are there any other questions on the Mayor's report? I'll move that we receive the, sorry, Councillor Cameron.
I've just got a question in general on the remits. Has this council ever put any remits to the conference and had any adopted or accepted to progress?
Not that I can remember.
I mean, all these seem reasonably sensible, so we...
Normally there's a lot more. Sometimes we get asked to support remits, but I'll get you to pop your light off and the Mayor might be able to answer.
Some Mayor's reports ago, 2 or 3, I asked for, because local government conference was coming up, did council want to have any remits they would like to put forward, and none come towards me, so we haven't got any, but I did ask. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'll move that we receive the Mayor's report. Someone, Councillor Cameron, would like to second. All those in favour say aye. Against no, carried. Thank you. We're a little bit early, but Rob, you're already here. Are you all good to go? Thank you. So our next item is presentation by Fonterra, and we welcome Rob Stevens, who's the Manager for Local Government and Stakeholder Affairs. You'll just need to turn your light on when you go to speak. We're yeah, and this has been recorded as well, so oops. Yeah. So this has been live streamed as well. So
okay.
Welcome, Rob. I think you've got a PowerPoint presentation, but do you just want to introduce yourself and go from there? And,
yep.
and we'll take questions at the end or through what. So
however you guys want to run
okay.
it. So that'd be good.
Great. Thank you.
Firstly, good afternoon, Your Worship and Madam Chair and councillors. It's a real privilege to sit here before you and talk about the New Zealand dairy industry, and I just want to thank you for that opportunity. My presentation sort of talks a little bit about the megatrends that we see in industry. It'll talk about where your milk goes, where milk goes that's collected from this region. It'll talk a bit about our factories, and it'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing on farm and what we see as the sort of challenges going forward. So firstly, allow me to introduce myself. As Madam Chair, my name is Rob Stevens, and my official job title is Manager, Local Government and Stakeholder Affairs for the South Island. So I'm responsible for the engagement with councils around the South Island where we have factories and farmers effectively. And I'm just new to role, so my family and I moved from Malaysia, where I was working for Fonterra looking after market access, so completely other end of the value chain, and I saw the opportunity to move south, and so we've moved to Christchurch in September and looking to explore the South Island. So for me, this is a new area. But it's an area that I'm quite interested in understanding, because I think that what we see on farm and the work that we do with councils and communities where we're operating is really key to the success of the dairy industry as an industry. Okay. So really, you know, when we look at what's happening globally, we've looked out to 2030, and you know, we believe that the fundamentals of dairy in particular, and in particular New Zealand dairy, are really strong. When we look to our markets, we know the world population is growing and getting older. Asia's middle class is rapidly increasing. They want more protein and more convenience in their life. People are more aware than ever of the links between nutrition and health, and they're taking more of an interest in immunity, cognition, and mental health. Put simply, the world wants what we've got, sustainably produced, high-quality, nutritious milk. So I think that's really important, because when I was in market, the qualities of our milk were critical for the consumers that were buying it. So the view of cows in pasture, the fact that we're able to process milk quickly and efficiently and provide a good standardised product to our customers. So just a little bit of a blast around our strategy. We divide our business into 5 areas. So core dairy, food service, paediatrics, sports and active, and medical and ageing. So the core dairy is really our commodity business. Okay, so you'll think of products like whole milk powder, AMF, butters, etc. Those are in our core dairy products. And those are products that we sell to other food manufacturers who use those goods as inputs into products that they manufacture and sell. Food service is where we sell to hotels and fast food restaurants. So if you've had a pizza from Pizza Hut, you've probably had some New Zealand dairy cheese on that. So that's an example of that piece. Pediatrics, sports and active, medical ageing are specific segments that we're targeting for growth and future development. And I think what's really important under here is that this strategy is really underpinned by 3 sort of touchstones, I suppose, if you want to call them that. So one is around innovation. So we're able to mine milk and get more value out of it. So whether it's the functional protein, whatever that looks like. The other piece is around sustainability. So there's a real focus on sustainability for us. And then lastly, we're looking at efficiency. So being able to unlock additional value by our size and scale in the communities where we operate. So the other sort of interesting thing, I think, is that, put simply, our strategy is to create value for our farmers, customers, and consumers where we operate. So we talk a lot about sort of the three healthies. Healthy people, and so that's both in terms of looking after and caring for our workforce and making sure that they come home safely after each day at work. And also the nutrition and sustainability, the nutritiousness that dairy products provide in a balanced diet. We also talk about healthy environment. So basically the environment is really important to us. How do we look after that? How do we improve it? And then we've got healthy business. And so we need a business that's returning profit to our farmers. And essentially we need all 3 of these things to be successful. So just a little bit around, what does sustainability look like to us? And when you think about our business, we have, I think, 10,000 people working in New Zealand, so quite a large business. We think about sustainability right the way through the value chain. Our big focus really is on decarbonising our manufacturing plants. And so a number of our plants are run using coal. And so we're in a process of converting from coal to wood biomass. So our aim is by 2037 is to get out of coal in all of our sites. And that's a real big challenge because, as you know, as you dig deeper into problems, you find challenges and plans shift, and so it's a bit of a moving feast, but that's a key target for us. Also by 2030, we're targeting a 30% reduction in absolute emissions for us. And also, you think about our packaging and our products, what happens to the waste, all that kind of stuff as well. So it's a continual journey, and we can't do it alone. I think part of it is around that key theme of partnership, both with technical people, but also with communities where we operate. There's a bit more detail on some of the sustainability initiatives. So we're making progress on farm and in our manufacturing sites to reduce emissions in our water footprint. The business is looking at converting all of our light vehicles to EVs by 2025, and we have goals about reducing the amount of waste to landfills. We also have our Living Water partnership with DOC, which has about a year to run, and focuses on sort of large-scale projects to improve the environment. So an example of that is white.
Can you just put that full screen? It's quite hard to read. Is that possible,
I'm not
Rob,
sure.
or not? Might not be.
It was a PDF, so
Sorry, maybe we could have it sent, emailed through to us later so we can reread
no,
it.
that's fine.
Thank you.
So Living Water is doing work in Waitahuna Catchment and Lagoon, and we're also doing some work reimagining the Ararira waterway networks. So working with drainage committees around the region as well. But from a sustainable catchments point of view, Mount Harding Stream is some work that we're doing. So we're doing some riparian planting across 4 dairy farms. Wildlands has developed the plan, so the next phase is sort of getting costs and executing, putting the plants in the ground basically. And the bottom sort of middle is what we're calling our cooperative difference, and I'll talk about that a bit later. So I think the message really is that we're making progress from an environmental sustainability perspective. I think that the progress is significant, but there's still more to do. And we really feel that if we want to be a leader in sustainability, then it's an area that we can grow. So you guys should know these. I just pulled these stats out of the NZ Dairy survey, and it's the 2019-2020 dairy survey, not the 21-22 dairy survey. And it sort of shows really the number of herds that are in Ashburton and average herd size. So dairying for this community is quite a significant contributor.
Rob, I'll just go to a question from Councillor Cameron.
Are you happy with that, Rob, question throughout the presentation?
Yeah.
Your comment, the 82% of New Zealanders feel it is very or extremely important to improve quality of our water. What reference was that?
I think that was an internal survey that we did. I can find out the reference for that.
That would be good.
Yep.
Yeah, because our community feel that our water is, they don't have any complaints with the quality of our water, as I understand it at the moment. The other thing was it 2037 you're going to get rid of your coal?
Yes.
37?
Councillor Cameron, can you just speak into your mic a bit?
I beg your pardon, I just couldn't hear, I couldn't, now, getting old and deaf and blind.
I think it's my mask.
What are your emissions at the moment in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of tonnes, do you know?
No, I don't know, but I do know that about 55% of our energy is from coal.
Okay, and have you reduced your emissions up to, like I said, a continual trajectory of reduction of emissions? You're working on that now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so let me just make a note. Perfect. So that's just the stats that I pulled out of the Dairy NZ report. So yeah. The other thing that I thought was actually quite interesting for you to know is sort of what is our footprint in this region really. And so we have 3 farm source stores, Ashburton, Rakaya and Methane. We also have a milk transfer station that's based in the business park where we've got 12 tankers that run from that. And we've effectively got over 300 Fonterra farmers in the region as well. So Ashburton is important to us. So this is a bit of a diagram. I asked our transport team to tell me where your milk goes. And so we don't have a factory in Ashburton, but basically 65% of your milk goes to Clandyboy and 35% approximately goes to Darfield. Of that, and we collect about 160,000 kilograms of milk solids. So if you think about that in terms of economics, we're talking about a $9.30 payout for this season, so you're about $1.3, $1.4 billion worth of revenue for for the region, for the farmers.
Is it 160 million or 100 and, have you got?
160 million kilograms of milk solids. So the numbers are sort of mind-bogglingly big. And I try a little bit later to put that into context for you. So, when you look at the income side for farmers, dairying is a significant contributor to the economic well-being of this region. The other piece to think about is that, while $9 and $9.30 looks really good, the input costs and challenges are also increasing on farm as well. So that margin that farmers are experiencing is getting squeezed. So this is Clandyboy. It was established in 1904, so it's one of our older sites. It's developed over time, so it's a really sprawling sort of site. It has about 1,000 people working in it, and there's 11 plants, so 11 manufacturing sites making different products. This site processes approximately 40% of the milk collected in the South Island, so it's quite large. And I'll go to the next slide. We have 75 tankers associated with this site. Each of those tankers will travel about 200,000 k's per year. So if you think about how much time those tankers are spending on the road, there's a lot of time there. The other point to sort of note is that, of the milk that New Zealand collects, about 7% is, sorry, let me say that again. Of the milk that New Zealand produces, about 95% of it is exported offshore. So very little is consumed here in New Zealand. And where do those products go? For Clandyboy, you can see it's amazing to think that, the tanker that you see rolling past the District Council office here will be bringing milk to a factory which exports to more than 40 or 50 different countries, right? So when I think about that, and I think about our connection to the world, and the importance of us in the community, that's key to it. So that market access piece, being able to get our products offshore, is really important. So Darfield is probably our youngest site. It's our first greenfield site in 14 years. Again, there's about 300, 400 people that work here. It exports more than 220,000 tonnes of milk powder a year. So these are just mind-bogglingly big numbers, which equates to about 10,000 export containers. So again, it's huge. And one of the additions to that site has been a cream cheese plant. So they're able to smash out 4.5 tonnes of cream cheese an hour. So if you ever have bagels and cream cheese, then, think of that. And again, all of our sites export. So there's a bit of just some stats on that. And again, Darfield exports a lot around the world. So it's really, really important. The other sort of sense I wanted to give you was, this is export data for New Zealand, okay? And so this shows you the top 15 markets where New Zealand dairy products end up, irrespective of whether they're Fonterra products or Synlait or whoever. We will tend to be about sort of 80% of that number as Fonterra, but there are other significant players in the dairy industry as well that build that number. So last 2021, New Zealand exported about 3.4 million tonnes of dairy products in total. And so you can see that China is really important. That's sort of just 35% kind of number. But equally, when you look at look down that list, you've got Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam. So Southeast Asia is also really key for us as an industry as well. And then you've also got, you know, the US, Japan, Australia. And so those are important markets as well for specific products and specific high protein products in particular. So now
Can I
we're
just
gonna-
ask a question? Sorry, going back to the map, you just said you've got numbers 1, 2 assigned to those. So is that in what do those numbers mean?
That's a really good question. I hadn't noticed those numbers.
I thought they related to your next,
No.
the top, but there's quite a few ones, so
Yeah.
maybe it's just some, yeah,
I think there's 46 in there too.
maybe in the types of products. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. It's good spotting. Oh. Whereabouts is it?
At the top there, it says number of customers.
Okay, there we go.
Darfield supplies food to in each country, so.
So that'll be the number, yeah.
United Arab Emirates is 10 customers.
Yep.
Okay, so that relates to the numbers.
Number of
Thank you. Yeah.
So the other sort of things that we're seeing on farm really are farm environment plans, and so this is a key tool that we're using to support our farmers with their environment, and it covers all aspects of environment on the farm. It's a one-to-one process, so we have sustainable dairy advisors that go out and work with our farmers to develop these plans, and there are actions that come out of these plans that we then audit against. So this, I think, really is quite an important platform. We also have nitrogen insights reporting as well. So there's a whole lot of data that our farmers get about their performance and the environment, which is key. Then if we look at the cooperative difference. So cooperative difference is basically a framework that we're using to manage or improve farmer performance. And so everything is thrown into this framework. There's 3 levels: Te Putaki, which is our strong sustainable base; Te Puku, which is building on that base through milk quality and excellence; Te Tahi, which is celebrating leaders in the co-op. So there's a cash incentive involved in this, and it's not much. It's sort of 10 cents, 11 cents per KGMS if farmers meet these criteria. The 5 areas really are around milk quality, co-op and prosperity, which is around farm records. So there's a big push to get farm records in by, I think, the end of this month. A baseline is a requirement to have an FEP. Basically, you need to have an FEP to qualify. Animals are covered as well, so farmers need to have an animal wellbeing plan. And then there's a people and community piece, which is basically carrying out a Dairy NZ Workplace 360 assessment. And so this is a way that we're able to signal to farmers the changes that we see in the market, and it gives farmers a runway for change. We're in a unique position in the sense that we're a co-op, we're owned by New Zealand farmers, but we also have our feet or our hands in the markets where our products are sold. So we get messages from customers about what's important to them and their customers. And so this cooperative difference is a way for us to translate those requirements or those desires in a structured way to our farmers. So this is just an example, really, of looking specifically at the environment piece. I think really the move at the moment, the focus has been on having a farm environment plan, but ultimately we'll move to outcomes. Okay, so what are the outcomes that we want to see? For example, farm grown feed and managing your purchased nitrogen surplus. So this is the mechanism or the tool that we're going to be able to try and manage those changes. And just last slide, you know, I think we're entering into a stage of rapid change, I think. We're seeing increased compliance and complexity. We're seeing farmers getting pulled in multiple directions, having to provide the same data to different entities. You have freshwater management coming. You've got import restrictions. Winter grazing management will continue to be a focus. We're seeing increased costs of compliance as well. We're expecting that to happen too, so the on-farm burden is going to be high. You've got a legislative agenda that's occurring as well. So what are the impacts on farmers? RMA reform, freshwater reform, local government reform potentially, modern slavery legislation. You know, what does all that stuff mean? And then I think, you know, the other piece is around privacy issues potentially. You know, how does council get the data and share it? I think there's some quite good conversations to be had in there, because I think Fonterra, we're having conversations with ECAN around how do we share data to drive a better outcome for our farmers. Greenhouse gases will continue to be a focus, particularly with He Waka Eka Noa, and there's still a lot of water that needs to go under the bridge, and that get the detail. And you know, as we've sort of heard earlier, access to skilled staff, and so that's a real challenge. You know, over the last 2 years, I think farmers have been under the pump. We've seen a lot of impacts around mental health with farmers, and so I think that's a real concern going forward. And that was the quick sachet.
That's great, thank you very much. I'm sure there'll be a few questions. First is from the Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Welcome, Rob. And there's looking at those challenges the dairy farmers have got, and looking at them, like seeing them there, that the price of milk in New Zealand's not going to be any cheaper for the consumer, is it? With all those prices adding on, all it is doing is adding more to the price of product, not taking it away. So that's just a comment. But I was looking at coal versus wood chips. Coal comes out of the ground as black, wood chips comes out of the ground as well as in trees. So how much efficiency do you get from going from coal to burning wood chip compared to using just straight electricity?
That's a good question. I'm not sure of the exact answer on that, Mayor, but what I would say is we certainly see wood chip as the solution for us. I think there are challenges with wood chip as well, in the sense of availability. In terms of specific numbers, I'm not sure, but I can find that out for you.
That's fine. Another question, comment. Milk when I grew up came from mammals. Today it doesn't necessarily come from a mammal, it can come from a plant.
Yes.
And what we're good at here at Ashburton is growing plants. We've lots of crops as well as milk from cows and sheep and goats in the district. So where does Fonterra sit on plant-based milk, or do they have a view on it or not?
We have a view on it. I think we sort of see dairy as complementary. Plant-based milks won't necessarily provide you with all the micronutrients and macronutrients that milk does, but they have a place in consumers' diets. I think the challenge, part of the challenge, I think, well, what we tend to see is that the plant-based consumers they'll roll from one milk to another, so they might go from oat to rice to something else, but they don't necessarily expand. You don't see the growth in that category as a total. So fundamentally, we still think that animal protein or milk protein, there's still a place for it, but you know, we're watching it closely.
Yeah, my comment there is Mid Canby can grow plant-based milks if required. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you for your presentation. Stats on dairy in the region, is that the region Canterbury or is that the Ashburton?
That's Ashburton.
So there's 415 dairy farms in our region.
That's what the stats say.
Great. Is Fonterra planning on investing in terms of a plant or any infrastructure in this region where the 415 dairy herds are?
Not as I understand it.
And why would that be? Just location?
We've got existing assets that we've got. You've got Darfield and Clantyboy that are sort of quite close to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of our assumptions is that milk may decline, milk volumes may decline, and so we really need to keep the assets that we've got full. Part of our challenge is that we have a milk curve, and so milk peaks around November, and so what we need at that point is maximum capacity, and so driving those assets is really important. So I don't imagine that we would look at putting a new plant in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Ever since day one, I've always been a great supporter of Fonterra, but I'm now starting to have deep questions about it, mainly because I look at the destruction we've seen in the value of the shares, which have not only harmed existing dairy farmers, but certainly harmed those who invested in the Fonterra shareholder fund. When we go back 20 years to what you had before when you started, the same aims are still there. The only ones that have been added since are the ones that are coming through pressure of public opinion and central government, re-sustainability, greenness, environmental concerns. You've still got innovation there, but how much innovation has there really been in what we turn our milk into? Probably about 80%, and I don't know what the figures are still going out of the country as powders, whether it's skim milk powder or whole milk powder. Now, we know powders are very volatile, and fortunately for the dairy farmer, has given, and largely 8 years out of 10, a very good return. But in actual fact, what I'm looking at, if you look back to the meat industry, when 40 or 50 years ago, everything went out in meat cloth. Nothing now goes out of this country in meat cloth. It all goes out in either consumer-ready packs or something like that. So to me, Fonterra's failure over the last 20 years has been to diversify its product into not so much consumer-ready product, but stuff which has been processed along the line to allow. I mean, the ultimate is to be like Nestle, where not much of their stuff is actually sold that's not consumer-ready. So why has it taken Fonterra so long to adapt and get their bums out of bed and do something about it?
So I would say in terms of the sustainability piece, we've always known that it's a challenge. The work that you've seen, like that partnership that we have with DOC is it's 9 years old, and we're talking about what does that look like, going forward. Your comment around commodity. Commodity, to my mind, is not necessarily a bad word. The other sort of optionality that if you think about the innovations, we haven't necessarily done innovations in product, but Global Dairy Trading Platform was one of the innovations that allowed us to set the price of milk in New Zealand. Otherwise, there was no real independent measure for that. So, I take your point. We're potentially slow, but you've got a cooperative of 10,000 farmers. A lot of those farmers are also very strong-minded, and we need to take everyone along on the journey.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Lovett.
I'd just like to know, from the biodiversity perspective, we see a lot of good work going on around farms, all the planting, all the waterways and shelter belts and that, but we need to tell the good story.
Yep.
and constantly tell it, because we've got the anti-campaigners out there and telling their myths, and people are starting to believe them. And, you know, this dirty dairy farming, it's having its effect on some of the kids at school, down at the local primary schools. And we've sort of got to get the attitudes changed, and to get people to start valuing the farmer. You know, there's a real issue out there, and you sort of go around with groups of people, oh, it's another dirty dairy farm, but we've really got to somehow lift it and tell the good stories, what's going on, because the water quality in a lot of these farms is good. And using nitrogen and stuff, the whole thing's changed, and we need to get those good stories out there.
Yeah, so when I think about one of the opportunities I think that Fonterra provides communities is a pathway for young people. So you might start in a factory, but that's not necessarily where you'll end up. When I think about my career, you know, I've been in the dairy industry for 25 plus years. I've worked as a research scientist in Palmerston North. I've gone offshore. I've worked in the head office in Auckland. So there are real opportunities there. So I think, and I suppose the question for me is that whose role is that? Is it a Dairy NZ role, or is it a Fonterra role, or is it both? And so I think that's probably a good discussion to have.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I would add another challenge to your list there, and it's one Mike Joy. I mean, the misinformation that's put out against dairying, and that you quoted 1-point-something billion income from Fonterra in this district. At a 30% taxation, we're contributing 300 million, or dairy farmers are, to the taxation of the country, not only the export, plus the meat and wool from this district. The huge impact that Fonterra and dairying have nationally and locally is absolutely huge, and I think Fonterra should rebut some of these misinformation things, that how vital it is to this district and the whole economy. If we got rid of half the cows, that would be $500 million more out of this district. But where would our whole infrastructure go? Collapse.
I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first part of my question is, welcome Rob, your title, as it appears on our agenda, is Manager of Local Government and Stakeholder Affairs. Apart from coming and telling us the Fonterra story, are there any other parts to your job in relation to cooperation with local government?
So, one of the areas that we are developing, you may have heard of our Grassroots Fund, which was basically a fund that a community could apply for. We've changed the name of that to be Hapori, which is effectively extended whānau. So it's not a lot of money, but each of the factories has their own Hapori committee that decides what projects in the community they support. Those projects need to meet certain criteria. So there's sort of 3 pillars. The first one is around nutrition, so nutrition in communities. The second one is around sustainability, so anything to do with environment and planting. And then the third one is around resilience. And so, you know, what can we do to help those communities where we operate? What I would say is that, you know, if you guys have ideas around opportunities for collaboration, then please share them with us, because that's really important. The other piece is my role also talks a lot to ECAN, ES and ORC. So a lot of our factories have resource consents, so making sure that we are engaging with those organisations at the right times. I don't do the technical work around the consent, but it's around making sure that we understand the direction of travel.
Madam Chair, the second part of my question is, and it's based on those 4 sites on Mount Harding Stream.
Yep.
If I can comment, they look magnificent. Do you check with the local government people involved, or the local government people that already have a say, or have a rating district, or flow water down such creeks before you give the plantings away to local groups through Hapua?
So can you say that again?
Do you check with the local groups when you give your plants away? Yes. Do you check with the local government entities such as Environment Canterbury,
yes,
who look after stormwater, and for example, Ashburton District Council that look after stockwater? Do you check with those people what their plans are for those streams or creeks?
I haven't checked. I don't.
Does anyone from Fonterra who give the plants away check?
I would assume someone does, but I can check.
Can you please?
Yes.
Because we have a situation, if I may, Madam Chair. I want to try and get this sorted if I can, because I don't think Mr. McCann's allowed to ask this question, whereas I perhaps can. We have a situation that on May the 18th, at our council meeting on page 70 of the agenda, we had a fish screen proposal put to us by our staff, and which we gave them the go-ahead to do, which may see a closure of a stock water race that actually feeds what I grew up in as Mount Harding Creek. I bathed in it. I've even done a newspaper article on it.
Yep.
And yet, with the nice plantings, it turns out it's Mount Harding Stream, and my worry is that Fonterra will oppose us in that form of water race closure that drives that creek, and I don't want to see that happen.
Okay.
And to my knowledge of Fonterra, you do not check with us.
So
we don't check with you. And also for Environment Canterbury, it is actually a stormwater drainage system and has a separate rating district around it.
Okay.
So, also a Methane Lion that have actually used a lot of your plants in Thyme Stream, which is actually Mount Harding Creek, according to our council information. To your information, it is Mount Harding Stream. And what I'm trying to overcome is the difference in the connotations of those words. And that's why I asked, the first question was, do you check within your relationship with local government? I'm wondering if we can have better cooperation.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So my question is, who do we need to check with?
Mr. McCann over there is head of our...
Okay, perfect.
Yep. He's a good chap.
Yeah, thank you, Angus. I think that can follow on after the meeting and go offline. Thank you. Couple more questions, Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you, and thank you for your report. It was very interesting. My question was, several times in there you mentioned that cow numbers will come down, or may come down, or will come down. Is that because of the pressure coming onto it's always been there from, as Stuart said, Mike Joy, or any of the anti-farming groups, a long-term effect? Are they getting some traction, I'm trying to say, to encourage numbers to come down, or is it from a different reason?
I think it's more around the economic use of the land. There's some unknowns there, and I think, if you look at the value of planting and agriculture in general, the changes, we're seeing changes, hops is, for example, and a potential change. So there are changes there, and I also think, farmers and businesses like certainty, so having uncertainty around regulatory and environmental limits and stuff also adds a degree of uncertainty around an operation. So I think Mike Joy, that's the stuff that you hear, but I'm not sure that's the real reason why land use is changing.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. As you're the manager with local government and Fonterra, I want to ask you a question about roads.
Yes.
Fonterra tankers are quite often criticised about road damage, doing their legitimate business. Do you ever liaise with roading managers in our district or other districts on routes you take, damage to roads you think should be upgraded? Just generally liaise on the transport routes you take in our district with the management that we do on our roads?
So tankers are new to me. What I would say is that we have a whole department that plans tanker routes. The tanker routes are prescribed, so they will not go past a school between 9 and 3. There's a whole lot of sort of constraints around them. If there's an opportunity to collaborate around road stuff, we would certainly be open to that conversation.
Great, thank you, good question. I think that looks like we're done for questions. We really appreciate you coming in and presenting to us. I know we've had James Cagle in a few times over the last term, so it's nice to meet you, and it's great to get that update. This is the end of our open meeting, so we're going to go into a committee, and then we'll have morning. Yeah, we've got new staff at 10 too, so we've got 10 minutes just to do a little bit of business. So if you want to wait for us for a cup of tea at 3, then you're welcome to, but we will move into public excluded to just do one item before the new staff come in. That's fine. Thanks, Rob. So